Hello all you beautiful nerds out there. I hope you're all doing fantastic. This is my March reading wrap up and I'm going to talk about the 12, I think, books I read in March. Thank you, audiobooks. The first two books I'm going to talk about is the first book I read this month and the last one. This is the fourth and the fifth books in the Wheel of Time. The Shadow Rising, the fourth one, and The Fires of Heaven, the fifth one. I loved The Shadow Rising. I might even have given it 5 stars. Not so much The Fires of Heaven. So I finished this yesterday. Man, it was a struggle. Both of these are like 1,000 pages. Oh my god, I was in such a pain. I was so happy. I was just waiting for it to be over. Wheel of Time does this thing where the ending is magnificent and the whole book is kind of building up to that ending, and because it's like a 14-book series, you're constantly introduced to all these new characters, and so there's like a lot of new characters, and at this point I am actually taking notes on the characters. Yeah, I know I said I wouldn't do that, but it came to a point where I was like getting annoyed if I didn't know who a certain person was. This is basically like a epic fantasy. My rabbits are driving me crazy right now. One of them is like giving birth in a week and she's trying to like find a place to give the birth, and she's just crazy right now. Like she's just jumping everywhere and he is feeling her hormones and he just wants to do her and he just, they're driving me crazy. Anyways, let's continue. So in all, like I'm not so motivated to pick up the next book in the series, but I guess we're doing one a month anyways, so it's gonna happen. I'm gonna continue, but very mixed feelings at this point. Then I finally finished Are You Listening by Tillie Walden, and this I've actually been reading for a really long time. I think I started it 2 months ago and I finished it this month, but I have only like come halfway, so I was still into the story. Tillie Walden has officially become, I think, my favorite graphic novelist because wow, like she does the artwork and the story, and she wrote and drew Sunbeam, which was just like amazing. Like I've never imagined that a graphic novel can do that, and this one was also so cool. It's about these two people, one that's like a young adult and one that's a teenager, and they're both kind of running away from something, and they kind of build up like this friendship, and weird things start happening along the way where they meet this cat and they start to take care of the cat, but then there's these people hunting the cat, and there's like an element of magical realism that's really cool. It has great representation. It is like weird in like a creepy but fun and interesting way, and in a way it's like very mellow. Things are happening, they're not super dramatic always, but it's kind of like a dream when you're reading it, and it's done really well, and the artwork is just like amazing. Like the colors chosen and just classic Tillie Walden. I finished Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I have a spoiler-free review and a spoiler discussion up on my channel if you want to check it out. I will link that in the cards. So this is it a space opera? Not really. It's a... He's crazy. Do you hear that? This is like following humanity, a first generation that has set out into the world to find all these new planets, to some try to colonize it and create new life, and some like an experiment when creating new life, and then like a couple centuries later another generation of humans are the last to leave the earth because the earth is ruined for whatever reason, and they kind of meet in and around the orbit of a planet that is the experiment, and on this experiment it was going to be monkeys that kind of evolved into humans by exposing them to the serum that would make evolution go faster, but instead of monkeys this has happened to spiders, which is really cool. So in this book, like, there's a lot of fun things happening with the spiders, and the way it's like reflecting humanity, and the way their science and the way they think is very based on the nature of spiders, and that's really exciting. But then the human part, the ones in the spaceship, wasn't as exciting for me. Like I kind of lost touch with the story when we were following those characters, but there's definitely human characters and spider characters in this where you're like very engaged, and their arc is amazing. Yeah, I'm excited for the next one. It wasn't my favorite fantasy of all time, and I think my favorite sci-fi of all time, and I think his other book, Cage of Souls, is better, but I'm still really excited to pick up Children of Ruin. Next we have Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee. This was sent to me for a review by Rebellion Publishing, and it's an arc. It comes out 9th of June. It's a young adult fantasy slash sci-fi about this girl who has like a very cross relationship with her sister, and so she's trying to make it as an artist. She owes so much money to the state, and so she takes this job for the state so she can be able to like pay back what she owes. And on this job she basically has to create a certain type of paint that gives inanimate objects a certain type of power, and there's this one like war dragon in here that she has to find a certain paint for, and then there's like loads of drama that happens in like this organization and also with the people, and like there's like a backstabbing, and it's a revolution, and it's about art. And it's a mix of those. So the things I liked about this book, I actually took notes on it, but I'm gonna skip looking at that because I'm impatient. What I liked about this book is the fact that you see her as like an artist, and I think the art reflections she had about why she draws and like the way she talks about art was very realistic, and I could really relate to that. And that's probably my favorite element of the book, but unfortunately I think I gave this 2 stars. I really didn't like the other elements. I think the magic wasn't well enough thought out. Isn't it so typical? I filmed today because it's cloudy, and then when I click on the camera, there's sun coming out. Things are driving me crazy today. I don't know what's happening. And the magic wasn't really that solid because there are certain like things that need to be destroyed to be able to make this paint magic, and it wasn't clear like why that happens. I think it's very important when people talk about magic, it's essentially energy, and I want to know, where does this energy comes from? How is it transformed? Like, that part of a magical system is important. Like, you can't just say, I am touching this yellow lamp and so I become yellow and that's the magic. Like, you have to explain how that transfers happen and what triggers this energy to be transformed. Like, even if it's magic, it still has to have like a scientific explanation or something that makes sense, unless it's like whimsical, you know, which I don't think this was intended to be. That was a little rant, but all in all, if you like revolution and dragons and art and young adult, I would recommend this. There's nothing wrong with the book. I think that was just not for me. Oh, okay. Then we have A Wild Sheep Chase by Haruki Murakami. This is the 3rd one in the Rat Quartet. So these books are really interesting because you're following the same characters, and I realized like no one in this book has names. And I watched my review of like the previous book in the series, and I realized that I was like, yeah, I don't know what the main character is called, but it's because he doesn't have a name, and everyone who is called by something basically have nicknames, and it's not their real name. But you're following this guy, like this is the 3rd one, so it's kind of like not really a spoiler. The weird part about these books is that they're all chronologically after each other, but you could technically like start with any book in the series, which is a weird feeling. Not that I would recommend that. Start from the beginning. So Murakami, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit slightly magical. This one is definitely a little bit more magical, I think, than the other ones. And with all of these books, the main character goes searching for something else. And in this one, it's so weird. I love the plot of these. In this one, what is it that happens with this one? How does he get caught up in all that stuff? Wait. Oh, yeah, his friend, the rat, sends him his postcard with a sheep on it, and he works in printing, and so he prints this sheep picture. It's to be distributed everywhere, but then this very popular politician takes contact with him, or his assistant takes contact with him and says that this popular politician, who's actually not so good, has a dream about the sheep in that picture, and we want you to find the sheep in that picture, otherwise we'll kill you. Oh, Murakami, what can I say? But it's much more about the writing, and Murakami, 5 stars. It was really good. This is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, his 3rd book and the last book in the Book of the Ancestors trilogy. I also read Bound, which was like a small novella taking place before this one, and it was like a romance story, and I was so confused when I was reading that one because it's like, it is a romance, but the romance that happened wasn't the one that I was like expecting and wanted to happen, and then I was confused if it was like a what's it called, love triangle. And then in this one, it wasn't like explained or evolved. Like, it was kind of felt like a little bit like a separate story, but I really liked it and I'm really glad I read it. Anyways, Holy Sister, this is definitely shorter than the other books, and I just can't believe that Mark Lawrence has like created this world, like with Nona, who's an assassin, and she's so cool and she develops so much like throughout the story. She starts at this like castaway, emotionless human that's like trained to be a nun assassin in a way. And then now, like at the end of this book, like she's developed so much, and it's so fun to follow her throughout this trilogy because she's just like an amazing character, and she turns so much more human, and the relationship she has with like all the other sisters at this convent. I really like the ending. I love the resolution. I thought it was really good. And I can't believe, I know now that he's creating like a second trilogy in this world, but there's so much in this world that could be explored with like the magic, the history, the people. Like, I feel like it's so vast, and that we just like dipped our toes in it. So I'm really hoping we can get more of that in the second trilogy. I think it's coming out, is it Book of the Ice? Something like that, coming out in April. But I probably have to wait for these paperback editions if I want them to match. So let's see what happens. And then the last 4 books I read this month, except The Wheel of Time, is all audiobooks. I listened to like 4 audiobooks in the last 2 weeks, which is crazy, but quarantine, am I right? The first one is The Martian by Andy Weir. This is a great audiobook. I highly recommend this as an audiobook. If you're gonna read it or listen to it, the audiobook is fantastic. The narrator is really good, but it's very American. The jokes are kind of cheesy, and there's a lot of like references, and it's about this guy, it's about this crew who travels to Mars, and then something happens. And then this guy called Mark Watney, who's in this team, he basically gets stranded behind, and his crew thinks he's left behind, but he is still there, and he has to find a way to like survive on Mars. So the whole book basically consists of his logs while he is there, and he's talking about how he's solving problems that come up. It's very scientific in a way. Like, he explains about like pressure, and he has to grow food and potatoes, and it's very fun because he's like a very chill character. And if there was anyone who was gonna be stranded on Mars, like it should have been him, because he deals with it so well with like a light heart, with like very matter of fact, like taking one thing at a time and celebrating the small steps. And he's a botanist and an engineer. So he has like the perfect type of capabilities for this type of situation, and it's really fun like following him and seeing and also hearing about all like the things that are happening. I have to say that it kind of became a little bit repetitive after a while. Like, obviously he has a lot of problems that comes up because they haven't been prepared for the situation, and at the same time there's people on Earth and in satellites that are trying to help him and find a way to communicate with him, get him back, and these kind of things. So I gave this 3 stars. Like, all in all, it's like it's a good read, it's a worthy read. I'm really glad I read it, and now I can watch the movie, which I'm really excited about. At times I felt like it was a little bit like too American, and I found it in a way, it's like, it's kind of crazy how much money like NASA and the world is spending on getting this like one human back. You know, like it's really crazy. Like, there's so many people, I don't know, in poor countries in the world, they like this money could save so many people, but instead they're saving this one human on Mars. And it's, in a way, like, it blows my mind that we humans think that way. And I know there's like a logical reason behind it, like science, all that stuff, but it's really crazy when you think about it. Anyways, next one. Then I listened to My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. I saw this on Ariel's channel, and I got recommended to it also by Moonbook, so thank you guys for that. It's about this woman, I think she's in her early 20s. She's obviously depressed, and so she decides that she is going to rest for an entire year. She's gonna take all these drugs that make her sleep all the time, and it's gonna like help her figure out what to do with her life, and she's just gonna chill and do nothing for a year. It's kind of crazy, like, that I understand what she's trying to do, but she does it in a way that's like, what? Like, that's not gonna solve your problems. It's funny, like, the resolution is quite funny. I think this book started out as like a 3-star, and then it became a 4-star, and then in the end I rated it as a 5-star. I don't know if it's a 5-star because I don't think it's one of my favorite books of all time, but it just made me like think about stuff, and I thought the concept was really interesting, and then the ending like kind of changed the story for me. Not that it's anything special that's happening in the end, but it was just really like nice and flat in a way. It's really crazy also because she finds this psychologist, I think, and she gets described all these prescription for like different sleeping medications, and she lies to her about how she has insomnia and these medications aren't working, so she gets more medication and harder medication, and her psychologist is just like crazy. Like, she is insane. Like, she prescribes stuff like that you should not prescribe. It's like, it's really crazy. Like, she forgets that her parents are dead, and it's a really funny situation, like that whole part of it. And then you're also following like the friendship between her and her best friend that is like very strange, and you don't really like any of the people in this book. They are all like very messed up, but also very human in a way. Oh my god, you're crazy. No. And it was just like such an odd book, but mostly she's narrating, and she talks about like her past and what's happening and her thoughts. And in general, I think my favorite type of audiobooks are the ones that are written from first person, and they're like narrating things that are happening or that are happened. Because I think it's weird to listen to audiobooks when it's third person for some reason. Then I listened to We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. This is also a great audiobook. It's a young adult sci-fi, kind of sci-fi. It has like a small element of sci-fi. So it's about this teenage boy who his boyfriend kills himself, and along this whole process, I think I don't know what happens after or stuff along his life, he has continuously been kidnapped by these aliens who are doing experiments on him, and there's this button that if he presses it, he stops the Earth from being destroyed at like a certain date. And so all he has to do is press the button and Earth isn't destroyed. But he isn't doing so well because his boyfriend killed himself, and he feels like, why should I save this Earth, you know? And so the book is following him like trying to come to terms with what his life is now, what happens to his boyfriend, and why he did that. There was something about this book that kind of the mental health aspect kind of irked me. I don't think it was well like written and handled, and the way that like the self-harm thing was kind of just like dropped in there, like I don't think that was very tasteful. In a way, I don't think this book did anything wrong. I don't think it tackled it wrong. I just didn't like it. I just felt like it just made me uncomfortable in a certain way. So I don't know, I think it's a matter of perspective, because there's nothing like technically offensive or wrong with it. I just didn't like it. So yeah, my favorite element of this was like the sci-fi element. I think I gave this 3 stars because it was like very meh, and it was very teenage, and like the teenage stuff happening, and I was kind of over it at this point. Then I listened to the audiobook Clean by Juno Dawson. I've read 3 books by Juno Dawson, and I actually really loved all of them. This is like one of her earlier books, I think, and this is about this really rich teenager who is an addict, and she has this boyfriend. How are you doing this? Oh, please, no. She has like a really destructive relationship with her boyfriend because he got her into drugs, and so she doesn't understand really that it is a problem. Like, she doesn't understand that she's an addict until she comes to like this recreational home in a way where there's only rich kids on this island. She has to detox and like go through this process of like recovery, and she has to come to terms with that she has like a drug problem. So in all, like this book is kind of like exaggerated, like how famous she is and like how accessible the drugs are. I don't know, the language. Do you want to die? I don't even know what I was talking about. This book, what did I think? It was okay. It was like very decent. I think that it was like the teenage aspect of it was very exaggerated. Like the famous aspect was very exaggerated. I think it was very like mediocre in a way. Like there was nothing special about it. But I don't think it handled anything like in an inappropriate way, like when it comes to mental health. I think maybe like the people who were in this facility, like the things they were struggling with, like it was kind of forced how the people were struggling with like different things, and it was like, these are all the types of addictions you can have. But at the same time, it's good that she showed that. So I don't know. I don't know if I like outright recommend this book, but yeah. Okay, that's it for this video. I'm sorry, I'm so angry today. They're making me crazy. I feel like I'm going crazy. I hope you're all doing better than I am. Comment below if you read on any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. Follow me on Goodreads if you want to talk about more books. And also comment what books you are currently reading or that you read in the month of March. I wish you all the best. Bye!